Hey guys, Aaron here. Welcome to another video. So today I want to talk about what to me is maybe the single best and most beneficial way to train to improve your skills on a bicycle or mountain bike. Riding a pump track is something that I've incorporated into my training program since day one. I think it is maybe the best way to develop certain skills, fitness as well, and all that in sort of a controlled, repeatable environment. So to me, I've got a lot of different things that might surprise you on things of why I think pump tracks are beneficial outside of the obvious. So let's jump right into it. I'd say the best thing overall for anybody to ride is learning how to basically manage and carry momentum. I'm a downhill racer professionally, that's what I do, and since it is all gravity fed and it's really rough, a lot of times you can't pedal, which is exactly pretty much where you end up on a pump track. So to me, I have seen riders, whether they're beginner riders just starting out or even professional level downhill riders, ride pump tracks and thought that should be the focus of their training for a few months, because there's so many skills and techniques you learn riding a pump track that I feel like are very hard to get on a trail. I think all different skill levels can greatly benefit from riding pump tracks, as well as fitness. When it comes to downhill, again, you can pretty much max your heart rate out in a downhill World Cup race in, I don't know, 30 seconds. And a lot of times you're not pedaling that much. And pump tracks can replicate basically like maybe the most intense cardio workout that I could think of ever doing without taking a single pedal stroke. So it is very, I feel like, relatable training for downhill and mountain bike type of training and riding. If you want to feel like you're really out of shape, just do a full sprint lap on a pump track.
Why are you so sweaty? I was watching Cops.
So let's jump into some of the techniques, and I think the first one that maybe would surprise a lot of people that I see, especially for beginner level riders in pump tracks, and the benefit of riding them is not actually the rollers and the jumps, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but corners. Cornering, if you've watched any of my other YouTube videos, is kind of everything to me as far as generating and maintaining speed. And I think being able to do it, especially at a paved pump track like this where you have a lot of grip and you can really see how changing your lines and corners affect your overall momentum around a track, I think is hugely beneficial. So if you haven't seen like the really deep dives that I've done on cornering, check out my other videos, they'll explain it a bunch. But we'll give you a couple of quick examples right now just to recap. All right, so quickly, cornering. As I said, I think a pump track's a great way to basically learn this. Number one, because you have traction, assuming it's paved compared to riding a trail. It's smooth. It's really easy to kind of like move around and the consequences are low. So as we've talked about in other videos, the importance, let's just call it, of staying in the meat of the turn, which is gonna basically be your top half of the berm, let's say, to be pretty broad. So you're gonna be anywhere from the white stripe to, let's say, maybe the midpoint of the berm. Being able to enter your corners and exit your corners in that zone is extremely important. One thing I see often is people come in too far inside in a berm and you end up kind of coming through the bottom half of the berm, and then you usually end up fading too far up and wide at the end and basically wrecks all of your speed. A lot of where you can actually pump is the turns. People think, oh, you just turn in the turns and you pump the rollers. But when you learn to pump out of corners, that's really where you generate a lot of your exit speed. And on a downhill bike, again, if you can learn to generate speed in the corners by pumping in the right circumstances, your overall trail speed will go way up. So being able to kind of maintain that, and then all the technique that comes into play with cornering, keeping your eyes up, looking out of your corner so you're not staring right at your front wheel, so that you can come out with good exit speed and be on to the next obstacles. All that other stuff we've talked about in detail in the last videos, but worth mentioning. So number one, turning, being able to go right, left, and do it very consistently and be able to move around on the berm and kind of experiment and figure out, like, where do I generate the best speed? I think that's all something super important. Okay, so another thing that I think is sometimes actually often overlooked of something that I think is another like huge skill builder at a pump track is learning to jump. Most of the time, especially with modern day pump tracks, they're built in a way where there's like a lot of different options of like ways to jump to more advanced, like bigger jumps. So to run through kind of what that could look like and things that I talk about with people that are trying to learn how to jump, I think the very best way, or one of the very best ways to learn how to like just get the tires off the ground, is what we call fly out scenario. So that would be like at a skate park, you do that at a pump track, where you're basically just hitting a berm and just jumping out to flat on deck. Like, it's about as safe and easy of a way to learn how to just get the tires off the ground as you could possibly do. Once you get comfortable with that, at a lot of pump tracks, there's spots where you can kind of do little berm to berm gaps like here. So you're working with a tabletop that's maybe this far, so little small gaps to bigger gaps like here. Sometimes you've even got flyouts like over there where you could hit the berm and land on the grass, which is a taller, steeper lip, so you can get comfortable kind of jumping there too. So there's a lot of like different ways to learn how to jump at a pump track. Obviously you want to watch out for people, make sure you're not gonna like go across and take somebody out. And then there's the obvious way, and that's actually starting to double some of the rollers, which is definitely a lot harder to do, but learning how to generate the speed to be able to jump rollers. And when you land, using your body to absorb the impact and be able to land perfectly on the backsides, because they are not forgiving. They're asphalt rollers, and most of the time, preferably, you're on a hardtail mountain bike. So if you case it or overshoot it, you're gonna kind of pay for it a little bit. So you've got like no shortage of opportunities of ways to kind of learn how to jump safely. So another big advantage of riding a pump track. All right, so now on to the obvious when it comes to pump tracks. Maybe the most beneficial part about training and riding on pump tracks, besides the fitness, is learning how to generate speed without pedaling.
He broke his chain. There's no more chain on his bike.
We haven't seen him put a pedal in yet.
As a downhill racer, that is something that is one of the most important parts about going fast. Really being able to separate yourselves from other riders.
Whoa! That is crazy! Takes the win with no chain! Look at the time!
And pump tracks really teach that. It kind of just creates this almost like mind, body, subconscious connection to how momentum carries and what it feels like over time, to where it just becomes a natural thing. And when you're on a mountain bike trail, you start to look for little backsides of rocks or rollers or water bars or whatever, anything you can kind of find to pump and generate speed when you can't pedal, even if you're going through a flat rock garden. Instead of kind of just being a passenger and slamming into stuff, you're looking for points to get light on the bike and pump the little pockets of smooth track to be able to generate and maintain momentum in sections where you can't pedal. Also, when it comes to pedaling, another tip, or something that really helps me, is I'm primarily a clip pedal rider. I pretty much always run clip pedals, which means my shoes clip into my pedals. And at a pump track, I pretty much always run flat pedals. And I feel like for me, we've talked about it in other videos as well of what I think the benefits are of actually running flat shoes and flat pedals on mountain bike tracks or trails occasionally. I think it develops a lot better technique in the long term, especially when you're starting out. But having an opportunity to jump on flat pedals every once in a while at a pump track, I think is only a good thing. So another benefit, learning to manual and all that maybe is not super common in a downhill type of situation, but you'd be surprised we still do it there. But definitely another skill where you can learn it in this situation pretty much safer and easier than anywhere else. So when it comes to all around bike skills and being able to be smooth, I think that's something that a lot of downhill riders, because they're used to just kind of going downhill and slamming into things, you start to kind of lose a little bit of that smoothness and preciseness, which I think pump tracks really bring back. And if you want to really be a high-level skilled rider and like really find the difference in the times between, say, like maybe a 10th place finish or a 5th place finish and a 1st place finish, a lot of those little details and developing those skills, to me, I feel like really makes a big difference. So that's that. So that's pretty much it for the pump track as far as skills go. A few things to look out for at a pump track for sure. Number one is be super aware of your surroundings. I can't tell you how many times I've seen either huge crashes or almost huge crashes involving like little kids on scooters and stuff goes, and you will feel really bad if you level a little kid on a scooter and they have just as much of a right to be here as we do. Whenever you think you're clear, you're probably not, because they have no idea. They'll drop right in front of you in the worst possible spot, and really bad things can happen. So if you're gonna ride a pump track a bunch, good chance are you're gonna run into little kids on scooters or bikes or whatever, skateboards. So be super aware of your surroundings, and just be kind. If you expect that going in, you're not gonna be upset that it's like messing up your session. Be supportive of those kids. They were all us once too. So that's one thing. Another thing, I recommend a hardtail if you can get one, and smooth tires. That definitely makes a big difference. When you start going fast in these bold turns, if you have knobby tires or if you have low tire pressure, that can end up becoming a recipe for a huge crash. So make sure you've got plenty of tire pressure. And if you have knobby tires, you're only gonna be able to go so fast on an asphalt berm. Another thing to look out for that is maybe the one big area where you could really mess yourself up. When you are practicing corners and you start going faster, if you push your front end over the top of one of these turns, you put your face straight into the asphalt. So be super aware of how high your front tire is in the berm, especially as you get going faster. You'll have a tendency to want to drift further up the berm to get better speed. Just give yourself a little margin of error. If you really start cutting that close, you could pay the price big time. And then obvious things like if it's wet, you know, be careful on the turns, especially on these paint stripes, stuff like that. Other than that, I think pump tracks are about the safest, kind of easiest way to learn, as we've been talking about. So hope you guys enjoyed, hope you learned something. If you got any questions, leave them in the comments, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.